1:30 a.m. Or is it 2? Doesn't matter. The numbers on the bedside clock just blur together anyway. I've tried everything. Warm milk, counting sheep. Do people still do that? Even that stupid meditation app she swears by. Nothing works. My mind's a goddamn hamster wheel, spinning and spinning, always coming back to the same thing. I guess that's why I'm doing this. Talking, typing, whatever you want to call it. Just need to get it out, I guess. Like lancing a boil, even though I know it's going to hurt like hell. Maybe someone out there will understand. Maybe not. Doesn't really matter. It all started, well, you know how it started. With the phone. Her phone. Connected to my car. Stupid Bluetooth. Stupid technology. Sometimes I wish we were still living in the Stone Age. At least then I wouldn't have had my world blown apart by a goddamn algorithm. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays are always leftovers night. Sarah, that's my wife, had made lasagna the night before, enough to feed a small army. She's a good cook, Sarah. Or she was. God. I don't even know what tints to use anymore. Anyway, I had to drive into the office that evening. Some emergency with the servers. The kind of thing that always seems to happen after 5 p.m. on a weekday. Sarah usually drives that car. It's the newer one, with all the bells and whistles. My old truck is reliable, but not exactly tech-savvy. So, I'm driving, tired, stressed, just wanting to get home and maybe watch some stupid TV to shut my brain off. And then the speakers crackle. And some music starts playing. Not my music. Definitely not my music. I figured it was just some random radio station bleeding through, you know? Static and all that. But it wasn't static. It was something much, much worse. I fiddled with the radio, trying to find a clear station. Nothing. Just that same faint music, almost like it was coming from inside my head. Then, a voice. Muffled. Distant, but definitely a voice. I thought maybe it was a podcast she'd been listening to earlier. Sarah's into all that self-help stuff. I remember thinking, damn, she left her podcast running. Annoying, but not the end of the world. I reached for the Bluetooth settings on the car's console, ready to disconnect her phone. That's when I saw it. Sarah's iPhone connected. It hadn't even asked. Just automatically paired, like it always does. Stupid car. Stupid phones. Stupid, stupid technology. I could have disconnected it right then. I should have. But something stopped me. Curiosity? A gut feeling? I don't know. I just hesitated. And that hesitation, that tiny little moment of indecision, changed everything. Because what came next wasn't a podcast. Not even close. The music faded, replaced by voices. I strained to hear, thinking it was some kind of weird talk radio. The signal was weak. Cutting in and out. At first, it was just background noise, indistinguishable murmurs. I almost dismissed it as a bad connection, ready to finally disconnect the damn thing and be done with it. But then, a phrase cut through the static, clear as a bell. Something about missing you. My blood ran cold. It wasn't a radio show. It wasn't a podcast. It was a conversation. And then I heard her laugh. That's when the world tilted on its axis. It was a laugh I knew intimately, a laugh I hadn't heard in what felt like forever. A light, carefree sound that used to be reserved just for me. Except it wasn't for me. It was for someone else. And in that moment, I knew. I just knew. Something was terribly, irrevocably wrong. It wasn't just the laugh, though that was bad enough. It was the way she laughed. Relaxed. Genuine. Like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. A weight I apparently hadn't even realized was there. I'd been so caught up in my own work, my own stresses, that I hadn't noticed. Hadn't seen the subtle shifts in her demeanor. The way she'd become distant, almost polite. We were living parallel lives, sharing a house, a bed, but not a connection. And now, listening to her laugh with someone else, it hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just some friendly chat. This was intimacy. This was something else. Something I wasn't a part of. Something I was being deliberately excluded from. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. The road ahead blurred. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things, that I was jumping to conclusions. But deep down, I knew. I knew with a certainty that chilled me to the bone. Then I heard his voice. It wasn't a deep, booming voice, or some overly masculine bravado. It was normal, almost too normal. A friendly, reassuring tone, the kind of voice you'd trust. But it wasn't me. It wasn't my voice. And there was something familiar about it. Like I'd heard it before, somewhere. Maybe a colleague? A friend of hers? I couldn't place it, but it gnawed at me. The way he said her name, Sarah, was different too. Not just a name, but an endearment. A caress. He said something about her day. Something specific about a meeting she'd had. Details she hadn't shared with me. And she responded with that same light, carefree laugh, her voice softer, more intimate than I'd heard in years. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture I desperately didn't want to see. A picture of betrayal. A picture of me, standing on the outside, looking in. The presentation went well, she said, her voice laced with a subtle pride. But Mr. Henderson was being a complete ass, as usual. I'm sorry, babe, the other voice replied. You deserve better than that. Babe. He called her babe. I'd stopped using that years ago. It felt cliché. Now, hearing him say it, it felt like a brand, marking her as his. More snippets. Dinner was just leftovers, lasagna, again. A small laugh. But it was good. I wish I could have been there to share it with you, he said. Me too, she whispered. The banality of it all was almost unbearable. They were talking about work, about dinner, about the mundane details of everyday life. But underneath the surface, there was a current of affection, a shared intimacy that was undeniable. It was the kind of conversation you have with someone you trust completely, someone you're deeply connected to, someone you love. And it wasn't me. That's when it happened. The headlights of the oncoming car were blinding. I swerved, too late. The impact was jarring, a screech of metal and shattering glass. The airbags deployed, a suffocating cloud of white. Everything went silent. Or maybe the silence was just inside my head. The conversation had stopped, cut short by the crash. I remember thinking, in that dazed, disoriented state, that at least I wouldn't have to hear any more. But the damage was done. The car was totaled, but that was the least of my worries. My head was throbbing, my chest ached from the airbag. But the real pain was in my chest. A deep, hollow ache that had nothing to do with physical injury. Was it an accident? That's the question that keeps replaying in my mind. Was I so distracted, so consumed by what I was hearing, that I simply didn't see the other car? Or was it something else? A subconscious act? A desperate attempt to escape the unbearable truth? I honestly don't know. The paramedics arrived, checked me over. Minor concussion, whiplash. Nothing serious. Sarah arrived a little later, her face pale with worry. She hugged me tight, asked if I was okay. The usual concerned wife routine. But I couldn't look her in the eye. The ride home was excruciating. She kept asking what happened, if I'd fallen asleep at the wheel. I just mumbled something about being distracted, not paying attention. I couldn't bring myself to tell her what I'd heard. The silence in the car was deafening, filled with unspoken accusations and betrayals. It felt like we were strangers, sitting side by side, sharing nothing but the stale air of the damaged car. Every mile felt like an eternity. I wanted to scream, to confront her, to demand answers. But I couldn't. I was frozen, paralyzed by the enormity of what I'd discovered, and by the fear of what would happen if I actually said it out loud. We went through the motions that night. Dinner. Neither of us touched it. Getting ready for bed. Separate sides of the mattress. A chasm between us. She asked again if I was okay, if I needed anything. I just shook my head, feigning exhaustion. I couldn't confront her. Not yet. Part of me was still clinging to the hope that I'd somehow misheard, misinterpreted, that there was some innocent explanation for everything. But deep down, I knew that was a lie. The truth was, I was scared. Scared of what she would say. Scared of what it would mean for our future. Scared of losing her. Even after everything I'd heard, the thought of her not being in my life was unbearable. So I did what I always do when faced with something difficult. I avoided it. I buried myself in work, in distractions, hoping that somehow the problem would just disappear. But it didn't. It festered, growing larger and more painful with each passing day. But avoidance only works for so long. Soon, I started noticing things. Small things, almost imperceptible at first. The way she'd flinch when I touched her. The extra care she took with her appearance, a new dress she hadn't worn for me. The hushed phone call she took in the other room. Always ending abruptly when I walked in. I started replaying past events in my mind, searching for clues I'd missed. A canceled date, a late night at work, a weekend trip with the girls that now seemed suspicious. Each memory, once innocent, now carried a dark undercurrent of doubt. I felt like I was living in a spy movie, constantly watching her, analyzing her every move. It was exhausting, and it was tearing me apart. But I couldn't stop. I needed to know. I needed to understand. Was this all in my head? Or was my marriage really crumbling around me? And if it was, how had I been so blind? I remember the day we met. A coffee shop, a spilled latte, a shared laugh. It felt like something out of a movie, instant connection. We talked for hours that day, sharing our dreams, our fears, our hopes for the future. I walked away knowing, with absolute certainty, that she was the one. We built a life together, brick by brick. Years of shared experiences, inside jokes, quiet moments of contentment. There was a time when I would have trusted her with my life. No questions asked. Now, that trust felt like a distant memory, a faded photograph. How could someone I loved so deeply, someone I thought I knew so well, be capable of this? Was our entire relationship a lie? Had I been living in a fool's paradise all along? The contrast between then and now was almost unbearable. The joy, the laughter, the unwavering belief in our future, all overshadowed by the dark cloud of doubt and suspicion. It was like watching a beautiful painting slowly being defaced, the colors fading. The image distorted beyond recognition. I couldn't let it go. I needed to know for sure. So, a week later, I found myself back in her car, driving the same route, at the same time of day. I told her I had to pick up something from the office, a lie that tasted like ash in my mouth. I waited, my heart pounding in my chest. And then, it happened again. The music, the crackle, the automatic Bluetooth connection. Her phone, linked to the car. This time, I didn't hesitate. I didn't try to disconnect it. I just listened. The conversation started innocently enough. A casual chat about her day. But then, his voice. That same familiar, yet unsettling voice. And the way she responded, her tone light and playful. It was all the confirmation I needed. But I kept listening, searching for something, anything, that would definitively shatter the last vestiges of my denial. I needed proof. Concrete, undeniable proof. And I was about to get it. "How's my little firefly doing tonight?" he asked. Firefly. That was it. That was the final nail in the coffin. Firefly was our word. A silly, private joke from years ago. A reference to a camping trip where she'd been mesmerized by the flickering lights. It was our thing. Hearing him use it, hearing him call her that, it was like a physical blow. It wasn't just an affair anymore. It was a theft. He was stealing our memories, our intimacy, our history. He was rewriting our story, and she was letting him. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The world seemed to spin around me, blurring into a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds. The pain was overwhelming. A crushing weight that threatened to suffocate me. In that moment, all hope died. All denial shattered. There was no mistaking it. There was no turning back. It was over. I drove home in a daze. The conversation replaying in my head like a broken record. She was waiting for me, a concerned expression on her face. "Everything okay?" she asked. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. Someone I didn't recognize. Someone who was capable of deception and betrayal. But I still couldn't say it. I mumbled something about a long day, needing to rest. I went to bed. But sleep was impossible. She came in later, tried to cuddle, but I recoiled. I couldn't bear to be touched by her. The next few days were a blur. We existed in a state of tense silence, avoiding each other, pretending that everything was normal. But it wasn't. The air was thick with unspoken accusations and unresolved pain. I still haven't confronted her. I don't know if I ever will. Maybe it's cowardice. Maybe it's a desperate attempt to cling to the illusion of happiness, however false it may be. Or maybe I'm just waiting for her to say something, to admit the truth. But she hasn't, and I don't think she will. Maybe this is all my fault. Maybe I pushed her away. I was so focused on my career, on providing for us, that I neglected her needs. I stopped listening. Stopped paying attention. I took her for granted. I remember her telling me, months ago, that she felt lonely, that we weren't connecting anymore. I brushed it off, told her I was busy, that things would get better. But they didn't. They got worse. I see now that I wasn't the partner she needed. I was distant, emotionally unavailable. I created a void in our relationship, and someone else filled it. That doesn't excuse her actions, but it does explain them. I missed the signs. I ignored her cries for help. I was too blind, too self-absorbed to see what was happening right in front of me. And now, I'm paying the price. A price that may be too high to bear. I am a failure as a husband, and maybe as a man. What did I miss? That's the question that haunts me now, in the dead of night, when the world is quiet and the truth is impossible to ignore. What were the subtle signs I overlooked? The unspoken pleas for attention I failed to hear? Could I have stopped this? Could I have saved our marriage if I had been more present, more engaged, more loving? Or was it inevitable? Was she always destined to find happiness elsewhere? These questions circle endlessly in my mind, offering no easy answers, no comfort, no peace. They're like ghosts whispering in my ear, reminding me of my failures, my shortcomings, my blind spots. I replay our conversations, searching for clues, for missed opportunities. I analyze her behavior, trying to understand what went wrong. But the past is a foreign country, and I can't go back. All I can do is dwell on what might have been and what will never be again. The weight of those unspoken questions is a heavy burden to carry. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if we'll stay together or if we'll separate. I don't know if I can ever forgive her, or if I even want to. The future stretches out before me. A vast and uncertain landscape, filled with more questions than answers. All I know is that something has broken, something irreparable. The trust, the love, the shared history, it's all been tainted, poisoned by betrayal. Even if we stay together, things will never be the same. There will always be that shadow, that unspoken knowledge, hanging over us. And that's a heavy burden to carry for both of us. The thought of starting over, of building a new life without her, is terrifying. But the thought of continuing like this, living a lie, is even worse. I'm trapped between two impossible choices, with no clear path forward. All I can do is wait, and see what happens. But waiting is the hardest part. So here I am, in the middle of the night, pouring my heart out to strangers on the internet. Maybe it's pathetic. Maybe it's a sign of weakness. But I don't know what else to do. I'm ashamed of my inaction, my cowardice, my inability to confront the truth. I'm angry at her for betraying my trust, for shattering my dreams. And I'm heartbroken for the loss of something beautiful, something I thought would last forever. I miss her. I miss us. I miss the life we had, even though I know now that it was flawed, imperfect, and ultimately unsustainable. I'm not sure what the point of all this is. Maybe it's just a way to vent, to release some of the pressure that's been building inside me. Maybe it's a desperate attempt to make sense of something that defies explanation. Whatever it is, it's done. I've said my piece. The confession hangs in the air, unresolved, incomplete, like my life. And now, I have to face the dawn, and whatever it brings.